Hello everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing the beautiful, albeit expensive, Aspen Mountain. Many people know the name Aspen, but not that many know a lot about the ski mountain itself, so today I'm going to tell you everything you need to know in order to maximize your day skiing Aspen Mountain. So with that, let's begin an Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Aspen Mountain. We'll start with a bit of background info. To start off, something you may hear during your trip to Aspen is the mountain being referred to as Ajax. Ajax was the name of the ski hill before it was bought by Aspen Skiing Company, and many locals still refer to it as Ajax to avoid confusion between Aspen Mountain and Aspen Highlands, and that's how we'll be referring to it in this video. Something you've probably already noticed is that Ajax has no greens. As a whole, Ajax is a very steep mountain, and even its blues are somewhat steep for blues, comparative to other Colorado resorts. Nonetheless, knowing that information, it is no surprise that Ajax is not a beginner mountain, no matter which way you cut it. Beginners should stick to buttermilk and or snowmass. Ajax, as a whole, is a super scenic ski area all around. It has an absolutely unmatched aesthetic with the town and surrounding terrain and panoramic views every which way you turn. Ajax has a sizable vertical drop of nearly 3,300 feet, despite its relatively small stature acreage-wise. It is a very vertically oriented ski area, and you'll see the impacts of that as we go run by run in a second. The one impact I'll say now is that due to the vertical orientation, the top can have perfect snow while the bottom of the mountain is completely bare. Snow conditions are highly variable just between the top and bottom elevations. These two lifts in purple, the Bell Mountain Double and Little Nell Fixed Grip Quad, literally never run. They're only there in case the gondola has a mechanical failure and has to close, so just plan on neither of those lifts being open, because it's greater than a 99% chance that that will be true. This season, the Gents Ridge Fixed Grip Quad has also been closed on non-peak days. Something that stood out to me in a positive manner about Ajax is that all of the lifts have benches at the top for snowboarders to strap in. Maybe I just haven't been very observant in the past, but that felt a little bit different for me to see them at every single lift. The final thing before we get going is that this Shadow Mountain lift here is also known as Lift 1A, and that's what I'll be calling it throughout the video. Okay, now let's pick it up in the Heroes terrain. Heroes is a brand new high-speed quad built in the summer of 2023 that opened up all of this terrain you can see in the inset. It is a brisk 5-minute ride and rarely sees any lines at all. The Heroes area is nearly all advanced terrain, and of the small number of blues, none are traditional blue groomers. All the way out of the boundary here are Starwalk and Harris's Wall, which are very hard to access. As you go across the Heroes Chutes No. 1 catwalk, you'll end up at Lucian's. You'll have to duck to the right into the trees until you find the boundary rope, and then follow that all the way until the trees end. You'll be rewarded with a wide open field that is rarely tracked out. It's absolutely worth the trek. Lucian's is a mogul run, while the rest of these Heroes Chutes No. 1 are mostly tree runs, although some open up a little bit more lower down. To get to Heroes Chutes No. 1, you'll have to do just a little bit of uphill skating. Certainly doable for skiers, but for boarders you will need to unclip. Buddy system is groomed, but very flat for most of the way, but then towards the bottom it becomes a mogul field. If you stick to the skier's far left side, there is generally a tiny little section of grooming. El Avenchero Glade and the opposing glade, E=mski² glade, are two of the easier tree skiing runs you'll find at Ajax. This Lud's Lane catwalk is really hard to find and is extremely flat. It should be saved solely for last-ditch efforts to leave. Use the lift to leave Heroes. Jim's, which runs right under the lift, is moguls the entire way. The blue section really should be rated single black in my opinion. The Heroes Chutes No. 2 area is not so much of tree skiing as mogul runs. I'm not a huge fan of this area. A run that I absolutely adore, however, is Walsh's. If you know what the Sun Valley Bowls are like, Walsh's is extremely reminiscent. It is a wide open bowl at the top and a bumped out gulch at the bottom. High-Rups is a gully all the way. Christie is more similar to Walsh's than to High-Rups, and it has a super steep drop-in. After the drop-in, though, you'll be rewarded with another untouched area. Christie is easy to miss. As soon as you make the turn onto North Star, keep your eyes peeled to the right side for about a 4-foot wide gap in the trees. It has a sign, but it's hard to read. Rideout and Hodgepodge are both roads, so I don't really like taking them. Mic Drop rarely gets skied, but it's also nothing crazy, just some tree skiing. Moving on, let's head a little bit lookers right to Gents Ridge. I try to avoid Gents Ridge because it runs at an absolute snail's pace. However, if you're willing to sit on the chairlift for a consistently long ride, and I'm talking 15 to 20 minutes, it's a great place to avoid the crowds and has a pair of great blue groomers in here, one in 2-leaf and copper, as well as North Star, which is a nice lengthy mogul black. Do be aware that North Star has a very long, very flat runout. There are also some nice trees in between the lift and North Star. As a whole, it's a good alternative to Heroes and Ajax, assuming you're willing to endure the slow ride. Although it doesn't appear so on the map, you can get to the bottom of the lift from Copper right here. Going straight from the bottom of the Gents Ridge chairlift is what appears to be a mild groomer. However, it has a sign that reads experts only for a reason, so don't be fooled, as it is not groomed the whole way down. This run is the Gentleman's Ridge Black, which is the bane of my existence. Off of Gents Ridge, you have access to Glades 1, 2, and 3, which honestly aren't all that difficult in my opinion, and would be more deserving of a single black rating than a double black. Below Gents Ridge, you can access Jackpot, which I'll come back to, and Bingo Glades. Bingo Glades are exactly as they sound, tree skiing, but they are rarely skied because they are so far out and only lappable via the gondola, or, theoretically, Bell Mountain if it were running. They are not great when there hasn't been recent snow due to the low elevation, but they are a perfect place to go during or after a storm. I absolutely hate Gents Ridge and Jackpot because they get sunbaked no matter if there was just a foot of powder. They are wide mogul runs with some trees throughout, but because of how consistently bad the snow is, I recommend avoiding them, period. Just a bit lookers right is Bell Mountain. I like Bell Mountain much more than Gentleman's Ridge. The face, back, and ridge of Bell are all really nice. The ridge of Bell has a jump, at least for this season, called Boyd's Bump. The ridge is all moguls, as are all of the named runs on the back of Bell. On the face side, runs like Nose and Meadow have some trees here and there. They're too sparse to call it a glade, but certainly present. Sunrise Sunset is a true mogul run. Syberts and Knowltons offer access to the Gents Ridge chairlift, and Sunrise Sunset will get you back to Ajax. The rest will force you all the way down to the gondola. This is critical to know for reasons we'll discuss in a bit. To access this area when Bell isn't running, there is a well-signed catwalk at the fork of Deer Park and Lazy Boy that will take you to the ridge and back section. There is another, smaller catwalk that starts at the same place but isn't signed as well, so when you see the main catwalk, look to your left and you'll see the little cut that takes you to the face side. Just above and lookers right of Bell Mountain is the Ajax Express Quad. This is, by far, the most popular area in the resort. It can be quite difficult to navigate because some runs cross other runs and there are short cutoffs all over the place. However, for the most part, the zone consists of very similar blue groomers throughout, and all of them will take you back down to Ajax, so don't worry too terribly much about navigation in the pod. As I've already kind of brushed on, this area has lots of good blue groomers. Buckhorn, Dipsy Doodle, Silverbell, 1 and 2 Leaf, Copper, and Deer Park are most but not all of the good blues in Ajax. My favorite blue in the whole resort isn't in the Ajax pod, and we'll get to it in a minute. Dipsy Doodle very well might be the easiest blue in the resort. Silverdip and Midnight typically aren't groomed. This Buckhorn cutoff is a busy road that I prefer to avoid. Upper Buckhorn is much nicer with views across the valley and much less crowding than the cutoff, but it's hard to get to. Ensure you exit right off the Ajax Express to get to Upper Buckhorn. It does get a touch icy, but the views are worth it. There are some nice lower level trees between Midnight and Midway Road here called Midnight Glades. There are also a couple of mogul blacks in the pod, but to be honest, there are much better blacks to be found elsewhere. The Ajax Express gets the longest lines at Ajax aside from the gondola. As such, I try to spend the middle of my day at Ruthie's, 1A, and Heroes with Ajax as the bookends, but if you just absolutely must stay in that area, the lines typically don't exceed 10 minutes. There's not much else to know about Ajax aside from that. It's a really nice area, just a touch busy for my personal liking. So now, let's discuss my two least favorite runs in the resort, Spar Gulch and Copper Bowl. These are the two major ways to get down from the summit, but not the only ways. Copper Bowl comes from the Gents Ridge side, and Spar comes from the Ajax side. Both get incredibly busy and icy, and when they merge at Kleenex Corner here, it can sometimes be pure chaos. Also, both have extremes flowing down into them, so make sure you're aware of your surroundings because people come flying in from everywhere. At the end of the day, both runs fall into deep shadow, and it's impossible to see contrast in the snow. I would highly recommend either skiing down the Shadow Mountainside or taking the gondola down at the end of the day. Kleenex Corner is a super narrow road with a 90-degree bend. Past that, you can drop into Niagara, but its snow is just trash overall, so I just avoid it regardless. Little Nell is super picturesque and wide, with views down into the village, but it gets so insanely icy. So all of this brings us down to the main event, the Silver Queen Gondola. The gondola takes 15 minutes to ride, seating 6 people per cabin and rising well over 3,000 vertical feet. The gondola is the primary out of base in Aspen and sometimes the only way out of base, and as such, From 10:30 to 1, it gets insanely busy on peak days. Do not go back to the gondola between 10 and 1:30 on peak days. Lap the FIS double blacks via 1A and Ruthie's in conjunction. Save your Bell Mountain and Gents Ridge laps for the afternoon or first tracks. If you absolutely must go to the gondola during the busy times, go to the skier's left side and avoid the right sideline at all costs. I will be the first to admit that it is rather annoying that the easiest way to lap a lot of the double blacks on the main face is via the gondola. However, the gondola offers fantastic panoramic views of the entire region, and it is nice to lap in the afternoon after peak crowds are gone. The gondola has external ski racks that are difficult to get twin-tip skis into, so if you're having trouble, there's no shame in asking an attendant for help. The other out-of-base lift at Ajax, when it's not broken, is the Shadow Mountain Double Chair Lift 1A, which never gets lines. 1A may be getting replaced with a detachable lift sometime in the coming decade, but I'm not going to guarantee anything. Most of the trails on the 1A side are ungroomed, with the major exceptions being all the roads, along with straw pile, which gets extremely icy. Of all the different areas of the resort, 1A definitely has the worst snow overall just due to the minimal snowmaking and low elevation. The lowest area under 1A is all blue, but it's still mostly ungroomed. Lazy 8 Gully is a great run for kids because it has high sides and allows for some playful technique. Magnifico to Normandy is an extremely wide open powder field that is extremely fun. Up above are mostly double blacks. Corkscrew, Super 8 Gully, and Corkscrew Gully are all really fun natural halfpipes if they have snow. When they don't have snow, they're just icy mogul runs. Norway, way over on the right side, has just as bad a snow as Niagara over on the gondola side, so I avoid it as well. This Shoes Gully is really nice because it offers the ability to see the lines on the gondola from the top, and if they're long, you just take Shoes down to 1A instead. Shoes is just a road, but thankfully it's not too flat. Lift 1A replaced Aspen's original lift, which you can still see remnants of just a couple blocks down the road in Willoughby Park. I know that means nothing to most of you, but for those of you who love the histories like me, I got you. Just above 1A is Ruthie's, which is an extremely unique lift. Ruthie's is one of only 2 high-speed triple chair lifts in all of North America. It rarely sees lines and serves Ruthie's Run, my favorite run in all of Ajax. It's a long, steep groomer that would probably be blue-black or single-black at other resorts, and it's generally less busy than the Ajax Blues. I could lap this run for an entire day. Rock Run and Gian Reardon's Run are 2 true long blue mogul runs that could easily pass for blacks at another resort. Over on the skier's left side of the lift, you can get to Aztec and Spring Pitch, which are very standard ungroomed single blacks. However, the main feature of this route is the ability to get to Trainer Ridge. Trainer Ridge is the only true extreme terrain at Ajax. It has cliffs, rock bands, trees, chutes, you name it. It only opens in the best of snow conditions, but if it is open, it's an absolute must-hit. From the top of Ruthie's, you can get back down to Ajax to go up top. However, if you want to do so on a blue, it's going to require a bit of a catwalk, and that catwalk is probably the flattest one in all of Ajax. FIS Trail is a wide open ungroomed run that isn't too terribly difficult compared to other single blacks at Ajax. Reds and Percy, however, are absolutely horrible in terms of snow, so I would highly recommend taking FIS Trail when exiting the Ruthie's area. The FIS Double Chair, despite its extremely short length, is one of the most useful connector lifts you can find anywhere. While it doesn't really lap that many trails, it is absolutely critical for getting you from Ajax to Ruthie's, as if it goes down, it requires going all the way down to 1A to get to Ruthie's. Just below FIS, in the area known as the Dumps, is International, a black mogul run that gives access to yet more double blacks. These runs are longer than they look and are mostly tree runs, although certain ones do have some mogul sections. The further down International you go before dropping in, the emptier the runs are. As such, S1 gets tracked out the quickest. For most of these runs, you must take International to access them. The exceptions are Short Snort and Last Dollar, which you can get to from Rock Run. Generally, these runs start much more narrow than they end, meaning that the snow is actually better at the bottom than at the top due to the drop-in choke points. Further down here, Silver Queen is a more traditional mogul run than the rest of these The Dumps runs are. Aspen opens and closes certain runs on a daily basis based on the day-to-day snow conditions. These runs are Trainer Ridge on the looker's right, Cone 1 to Silver Queen Ridge in the Dumps, and Bingo Glades on the skier's left. If unsure, you can always just ski towards those runs and, if closed, take Spring Pitch, Silver Queen, or Jackpot respectively. Well, that about wraps it up for Ajax. I know this was a little bit longer of an insider's guide, but I hope that this helped you all. If you stuck it out all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching. Go check out another insider's guide now about some other great resort around the West. As always, please leave any questions down below. All my love, I'm out.